Well, you like this so much. Well, it's creepy. You like this so much. Why are you getting out?
Because I did it for a long, long time. By the time I finish up with Hit Somebody, it'll be 20 years of doing it. And, there are people who have been doing it much longer than 20 years, like Martin Scorsese and Clint Eastwood. But Martin Scorsese and Clint Eastwood were the real deal. I was never the real deal. I was the guy that was like, I saw Slacker and I was like, man, this looks fucking awesome. I want to make a film too. And I did it. And that film took me further than I ever imagined. I just wanted to make Clerks so that somebody would see it. And next time I wanted to make a movie, they would give me money so I didn't have to put it on credit cards. And Clerks took me way further than that. Like, I thought it was just like, it's like a bus ticket you think will get you across town and it takes you to Europe. And you're like, oh my Christ. And it opened up a lot of doors and I got to make a shit ton of movies, more than I ever imagined I would make. So much so that I ran out of fucking ideas that I dreamed about when, I was a nascent filmmaker and had to start generating new shit to make movies for. So for me, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Like I didn't have that much vision. Even when I was like, man, I hope Clerks works, I never saw that fucking far. Like I never saw like, man, I'll be doing this for the rest of my life. I just saw the immediate, like the time being. So you get to a point where you do it for 20 years, and this is for me, it's obviously not the same for everybody, but after 20 years of doing something that is not my first language, like this is my first language. I'm a talker, obviously. Trying to speak in pictures for 20 years has been difficult for me, to say the least, stymieing in some cases, because I can write dialogue, but then presenting it to you in pictures, I just don't have those facilities. I don't have those faculties. And I grew them over time, but in the beginning I didn't. It was such a frustrating process. But it elevating at the same time. You're just making it happen, but at the same time, I'm like, I wish I was better at this. So you do this for like 20 years, you do anything for 20 years, man. You can get to a point where you're like, yeah, that was great, but now it's just diminishing returns. Now it's me doing the same thing over and over again. I'm not going to bring anything new to the game, although I made Red State and then I was like, shit, there is something cool there. But that was me burning the candle at both ends. That's me going, this is every fucking trick I have in the book, like dancing as fast as I can and being like, at the end of it. And it pays off. Red State works like a motherfucker. But when you empty the tank like that, making that movie, how many more you think you got in you? Like that's the weird thing about this business. It's weird, wonderful, and frustrating. You show someone your movie, the movie you worked on for a year, maybe 10 years. First words out of their mouth after a compliment or a fucking damn is this. What's next? Like immediately they want to know what you want to do next. You're like, this took me a lifetime to get to this point in 1 year's time alone. Like, and you want to know what's next? Like, it's a ever hungry consumer out there that like takes it, watches it, and then wants to know what you're going to do in the immediate next. And I was ready for that. I was happy. I was like, here, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And then you get to a point where film has opened up a lot of doors for me, man. Podcasting has become a real passion. I'm obviously a talker. It's put me on stages doing Q&A, and I'm kind of comfortable doing that and happy being a personality of sorts. It's let me write comic books. It's let me do so many things that I didn't even anticipate 20 years ago. I'll be honest with you. If podcasting existed 20 years ago, I would have watched Richard Linklater's Slacker. I would have come home and I recorded a podcast about how much I enjoyed it, and that's where it would have ended. Because this is the medium that appeals to me the most, like talking. This makes sense. It's my first language. Trying to talk in film is like trying to speak in pictures for me was always kind of like learning 2 years of Spanish and then trying to go live in Spain. And I didn't really pay attention through Spanish 1 and 2. So, people would talk at you real fast and you're just like, trabajo I got. You get little pieces and you can kind of put it together and not fake your way through it. If everyone knows how amateur you were, believe me, they always tried to surround me with supporting people that would make me a better filmmaker, but it was never my first language. But it opened the door to like all these other things, which I'm way more interested in now. And I always feel like, and Quentin said this to me first, man. Quentin Tarantino said to me, filmmaking, directing's a young man's game. I said, you're crazy, dude. What do you mean? He's like, I'm not going to do this forever. He's like, by the time I'm 50, I'm going to stop. I goes, why? He goes, because only young guys and women should be doing it. I said, why? He's going, that's where their passion is. They're on fire, man. They bring something new to the game. No old person ever comes up with a new look to film. And I was like, you're wrong. I'm going to do this till I'm dead. And then fucking one day I realized like, oh my God, he's right. Like you can stop. There's a tough thing to stopping. When somebody punches your golden ticket, you feel like, I'd be a fool not to keep going. I'd be a fool not to continue to get paid millions of dollars to make pretend. And that's the business person in you that is slowly developed alongside of the filmmaker that was in your soul. In order to survive in this business, you also have to become something of a business person as well. And your head and heart becomes so full of such stupid 4-quadrant fucking business bullshit. I could tell you how many movies open a year, what they make, fucking all that nonsense that has nothing to do with storytelling and making an art. It's part of the process, but it doesn't help, you know, and you do that for 20 years, man. And you're just like, I've enjoyed it. All my dreams came true, but I'm ready to try something else. And, you know, it's like always there to go back to. And also for me, I've always been very clear. I'm like, I just don't want to direct movies for theatrical release anymore. It just feels like the stories that I want to tell are too small. There's a period in the 90s or through the aughts where they were taking chances on weird, small personal movies at a point where every studio had an indie boutique label. That time is over. You know, Disney sold Miramax and they bought Marvel. That's what they want to do. And I love those movies, but I have no interest in making them. I want to watch them, but I can't and I won't make them. I just can't do it. It's not, I'd much rather do this for fucking 10 hours than shoot, you know, for 1 hour on an action film and somebody be like, okay, we're just about ready to capture 1 second of film. Like, no, life's too short. But if you have that kind of patience, you could produce something cool like Dark Knight Returns or fucking Avengers. But I'm not that cat. Filmmaking was not what I was meant to do. I kind of carpet bagged in. I didn't really carpet bag. I fought my way in. And once I got in, I started seeing other things that were more appetizing. And so I've realized, like, look, you could just finish. Like, there's no reason to keep doing it. You know, it's not ungrateful if you fucking walk away. It's ungrateful if you keep doing it and you're putting out not your best. Like, if you can't play your A game, you know, like hockey players eventually have to retire. Because why? Not because they don't want to leave the game. They just physically can't do it anymore. You get to a point where, like, if you can't produce your A game, you don't want to play anymore. It's just like, fuck, I'm slow over here. Like, I used to be out ahead of the pack. I don't want to be a slow guy. So I realized, go out, finish, complete. There's nothing wrong with completing, but go out strong, burn bright, finish like you started. You came in like an artist, go out like a fucking artist, man. And that's where Red State came from. But in order to get to Red State, I had to get Cop Out first. There was a 3-year plan to get out of movies, Cop Out, Red State, and hit somebody. And I knew in order to get to the hockey movie, those 2 steps were essential. One was working in a studio system and figuring out marketing. And the other was to make this movie that didn't look anything like anything I'd ever done before. The holy fuck, the dog talked movie. You know, it's like you watch Red State and you go, who knew we had him in him and shit? And that just gets people's appetites whetted enough to maybe think about making a hockey movie. You got to align so many stars to pull off something like that. And once I do it, I'm like, I feel like I'm done. That's it. It'll never be as good as that. I won't have as much passion for it anymore. But if I want to direct something, I'll throw it on the internet or something like that. I'll direct a TV pilot or something. But theatrical film, man, that's the domain. In this economy, it's the domain of, this is the age of the Avengers. $200 million opening, dude. Nobody wants to hear from convenience store clerks anymore. There's a place for that. The internet, Netflix, Hulu, every place like that. But for people to leave their houses and shell out minimum $20 in some cases for a fucking movie ticket and a drink, they want spectacle. And I don't do spectacle. I like to watch it and make fun of it. And that's what I'll spend the rest of my life doing. But I enjoyed it, man. It's great. I just don't see myself doing it. Like, now I get hot and weird about ideas that I'm like, everyone expects Clerks 3. They're like, no, finish with Clerks 3. And I'm like, well, that's what you would expect. Like, I've spent the last few years trying to do the thing that you wouldn't expect, you know, do the other thing, the artistic thing. So for me, the notion of making Clerks 3 as a film, I'm just like, nah. But making it as a play, like, I would totally do that because I've never done a play before. And I went and saw Book of Mormon, as I said, and I also saw this wonderful play that Alan Rickman was in. It was more of a drama, no music or anything like that, but it was funny. And I was like, shit, man, this would be intriguing to me. I could totally bring Dante Randall back, put him in this setting. The notion of doing it live in front of people, like, kind of charges me up. The notion of going to one more movie set, turning a camera on Brian and Jeff and being like, say the things that I wrote. It just doesn't do it for me anymore. You gotta mix it up. If it's not engaging for you as the artist, guess what? It's gonna play like fucking pancakes to the audience. They know when you're on fire and they know when you're not. And I want to give them fire, especially if I want to walk away from that visual medium so much as a filmmaker. I want to make sure I go out, burn the candle at both ends, you know, and when you do that, you know, soon the wax is gone and shit. But while it's burning, fuck, you're giving them something cool. And I thought it was a responsibility. I came in pushing at the edge of the envelope, trying to say something nobody ever said before. And I didn't want to go out saying the same shit everybody does. They got plenty of people lined up to tell those stories over and over again. And I'm happy to watch them. I just don't want to make them. I felt like it's a precious gift. I'm going to do it. I'm going to play it like I played it in the beginning. I'm going to do the shit that matters. And if I don't get paid for it, so fucking be it, man. It's worth it at the end of the day. Like Red State was one of the best investments of my time, even though I never got paid. You know, maybe Clerks the first best investment of my time without getting paid, professionally speaking. If my wife was here, I'd say my wife was the best investment of my time, personally speaking, but professionally speaking, probably Clerks. Right after that was Red State. Didn't make any money, but fuck, I learned a lot and got to you know what was weird about Red State? I mean, it sounds weird, but I bought my indie credibility back. I didn't think that was possible. Like I sold my indie credibility to make movies for someone else, for them to give me money and make movies. And I got away with it for a while because I was making movies with a company that seemed like it was indie, smelled like indie, put out movies like indie, but it was paid for by a massive studio with mouse ears. So I was never technically independent after I sold Clerks forward. And they always refer to me as indie filmmaker. I get pulled up on stage, indie filmmaker Kevin Smith. That eats at your soul. Every time they say indie filmmaker and you know you flew there first class, I was like, I'm not an indie filmmaker. I've always been paid for, bought and paid for. And I was like, I want to go out the way I came in. Like, I don't want to be bought and paid for. I want to do what I want and say what I want and be artistic with it. Do shit that, like, you know, you get to a point where like Kevin makes those movies, those Clerks movies. And it was important for me before I ended to be like, I could have done this, but I just happened to like making those Clerks movies, you know, an awful lot. They beat that out of me, man. I used to love making View Askew movies, but, fucking people are like, you just keep making those movies. Like, all right, I'll fucking stop. And now all I read on Twitter is, when are you going to make another one of those movies?